Welcome, everyone. I am Chris Berryman, coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. We are so thankful and honored that you're all here today for our Bringing Humanity Together live stream. This is one of the three open forums under the Bringing Humanity Together umbrella where people can discuss topics related to the workplace and humanity in the workplace in a very positive and constructive way. We want to know what the issues are that are out there that people are facing because it is our goal to work both with the employers and the employees to bring humanity back to the workforce. And as always, we'll be going live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Please feel free to invite your friends, family, coworkers, colleagues, whoever. And if you do share this and see this on the replay, please hashtag replay. Today, our host is none other than the great Carla Fedigan. She's doing, of course, today Humanity Happy Hour. And today is, of course, Terrific Thursday, so you can't beat that either. So it's a 2-for-1 special today. So as you jump on, feel free to comment in the LinkedIn chat. Or if you're on YouTube, also please tell us where you're jumping on from and calling in from. And if you'd like to be able to join us in the green room, here in just a second, I will be posting on the screen the link so you guys could be able to jump on. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments that you want to be able to throw out there, please put that in there. So just to let you know, we can have up to 10 people at a time. And right now, we're trying to get some issues fixed with Facebook. Right now, Facebook is currently down. So right now, what we're all going to be streaming on is right now LinkedIn Live and YouTube, and hopefully we'll get it straightened out come next week. So, Miss Carla, it is over to you, my dear.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Thursday Humanity Happy Hour. Grab your beverage of choice. I'm not going to question anybody. Put your feet up and relax. And we always try to find interesting topics to talk about. And feel free to chime in if you have a topic that you would like to address. But I was looking at some of the current news on LinkedIn today, and I was reading an article about how a lot of corporations are looking at going back to the office in the fall. And they're trying to decide what that is going to look like. Are they going to have people go back full time? Are they going to allow people to make a choice between remote working? What kind of a hybrid plan are they going to work out for people? And one of the things that I thought that we could talk about is, you know, if you're in a position where you were able to work at home during COVID, what kind of things have you changed in your everyday life to accommodate that, and maybe some of the struggles that you've had? But one of the things that I found interesting in this article, I happen to work for myself, so I didn't really face that, and I've been working for myself since September 2019. But one of the things I was reading was some of the employers have decided that, let's say, for example, you were working in New York City and you decided you were closed down because of COVID, and you decided, well, if I'm going to work remotely, we're going to relocate. I've heard of people that have relocated like to Virginia or even to the South or just wherever, anywhere outside of the, New York area, for example, in this example. But companies were looking at cutting people's pay if they chose to work remotely. And I started thinking, we got to have a conversation about this, because you're still doing the same job. You might be negotiating and manipulating and juggling other things, like kids that are doing remote working, remote learning or whatever. You're still doing the same job, but they're going to start telling you that you are going to be paid less. And I don't know if I'm okay with that. What do you guys think?
I'm not okay with it. I think if you're doing the same job, you should get the same pay. It doesn't really matter where you're doing it, as long as you're getting it done. And if you're meeting your deadlines and you're doing the things that you're supposed to do and it's happening, then, why would you get less pay for it? It doesn't make any sense to me, just because you're sitting at home rather than a desk in an office. I mean, if you're not getting your work done, that's a different story.
Uh-huh. Well, so the 9 to 5, from what I've read, had kind of came about during the days of Henry Ford, when he wanted to put automobiles together. And so he came up with a factory idea and said, everyone's going to come in at X time and they're going to leave at this time, and we're going to work during that time. And that's how kind of that 9 to 5 mindset or shift work even came into being, that when you were in the workplace, you were actually working. Well, if you have a project to do and you have a deadline, let's just say the 15th of May, does it really matter if you're working on it at 9 o'clock at night because you've taken care of a sick family member all day and you choose to work in the evening and you still get it done? Is it like, should you actually be like, I'm supposed to be at my desk from 9 to 5, and a lot of people have told me that their workplace has structured back to back meetings just to make sure that they know that people are there working. And I don't know, I'm like you, Sandy. If you can get the job done, get the job done.
Yeah,
whatever time frame you want to do it in.
Yeah, who cares when you do it, as long as it's done and you're meeting your deadlines and we're getting what we expect in terms of the work that you're doing. I don't know why they care. I mean, I really don't know why they care. I mean, it is more difficult when people are working remotely to sort of have that continuity and that collaboration in terms of people working together. So one of the things that's very important for organizations is that whoever is the team lead needs to have regular meetings, regular conversations with the people that are working remotely. So whether it's every morning or whether it's once a week or whatever it is, but it needs to be something that's scheduled so that the whole team is on board and is able to talk to each other and see, where people are in terms of the project and so on and so forth. But that's up to the team lead to organize that, because they're not in the office, so they've got to do it on Zoom or Skype or, Restream like we're doing. Like, it doesn't matter what platform you use, but there has to be some regular communication so that everybody knows what's going on with everybody else. And that is something that needs to be organized by the team lead.
Mm-hmm. And, even if it's, on an individual basis, or maybe getting the team together every day, like having a team huddle every morning at 9, for example. Like when I volunteer in church, we all get together right before, when we're supposed to be, quote unquote, on duty, and we have a team huddle. And it takes about 10, 15 minutes. That's about it.
Well, we used to do that in the dental office. We'd have a morning huddle before the day started, because once the day started, having conversations was very difficult. But if we were sharing patients, or if the receptionist knew that somebody had some kind of issue, whatever, it doesn't matter. But we just would have like a 15-minute morning huddle before everybody got started, just so that we could all be on the same page when the day started. That's all. No big deal. Not that hard to do. But it's just something so that we're all on the same page.
Well, why do you think that companies really want to integrate a hybrid plan? Do you think it's for a control issue, or do you think that it's beneficial that people show up, physically? What do you think about that?
Well, for me, since I'm in the realm of the hospitality industry, that goes to restaurants, hotels, cruise ships, things of that nature, you really can't have a hybrid environment for the very workers who actually are in those particular areas. Now, when it comes to maybe the district managers, VPs and presidents of said company or that kind of thing, that's going to be a different dynamic, because they're not doing the day-to-day and everything like that. But from to answer your question, from my perspective, it could be a little bit of both. It could be a little bit of both about convenience, and also maybe it's a control thing, just like you were saying before the call. When it gets to a lot of these places in the office realm, that you have all these office workers that's working in these spaces, no matter what kind of industry it is, that they have a home office somewhere. Oh, we're going to send half our workforce home and they can do remote work from home. Okay, granted, that's great. But why would then you turn around and say, hey, if you're going to do said work at home, and yet, like your example was, pay somebody $3 less an hour than you would do the very same work, even if it's in an office setting, in an office complex. To me, there's no difference. There isn't. You do said work in said place. That's what you do. That's what you get paid for. And it's like what Sandy says many, many times. Just let people do the work that they know that they can do. And so, Tay, I've seen that you chimed in here today. Tay, we would love to have you on and get your perspective on this because we want to hear your thoughts about this topic. And like I said, thank you, Tay, for saying that this is such an awesome chat so far. But we would love to hear from you. So like I said, the link has already been given to you in the chat, and we would love to hear your thoughts on it. To me, it doesn't really matter where you're at in a business dynamic setting, ladies. If you're physically working, you still have to do said work. If you're remotely working, like I said, there's going to be a difference because of healthcare workers, pharmacies, restaurants. That dynamic's totally blown out the window to a certain degree because that's a different dynamic onto itself. But if we're going to have a hybrid economy and a hybrid, or even I dare say a parallel economy, then we need to understand and say, hey, the best people are going to be able to work from this way of doing things because that's what caters to them. And then if other people like to physically go into the office, then let them do that. Let them see. I just tell people every day, you do you. Do what's best for you. I shouldn't tell you how you should do your job. I can be, again, like we said before many times, we can be that guy on that hero's journey with you to get you to be that very hero, or I dare say that leader that you know that you can be. What's your thoughts, ladies?
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, again, and I say this over and over again, I don't care where you're doing your job, but if you're doing your job and you're getting everything done and you're doing it well, why would they care where you are? I mean, if you're not getting your work done and you're not meeting the deadlines and so on and so forth, then we have a problem. Definitely have a problem. But, maybe you'll just lose your job. But if people are doing it, and who cares? Like Carla said, what difference does it make if they're doing it 9 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock in the morning? If it's getting done, I don't see the difference. I don't see how that matters. I mean, both my son and daughter-in-law are working from home these days, and both their boys are being homeschooled because in Ontario, everything is locked down.
Right.
So, and the boys are doing their stuff remotely, so it's all on the computer. The older one really likes it, and he's pretty good on the computer, so he doesn't need a lot of support. But the little one needs help.
He's the techie of the family.
Yeah. So the little one needs more help. And so his mom is in the room next to his room. And if he needs help, he can just, come in and say, Mommy, I need help with this. And so Kim will, just pause whatever she's doing and go and help him with whatever he's struggling with at the moment. But it doesn't mean she doesn't get her work done, because she does. And it's just a matter of, sort of balancing it. And if she's too busy and if my son has a little time, so my son will help him because my son's very techie. So it's just a matter of, what are you doing? But as long as their superiors are not unhappy with them getting their work done, which they're doing, then who cares that they're at home? They each have their own office space from which to work, and they each have their own computers and so on and so forth. And the boys have their own computers. They're not using the computers. And so, I don't see what difference it makes. I mean, Mark gets his work done. Kim gets his work done. They're both very organized, capable people. And sometimes it's done at 10 o'clock at night, after the boys have settled in and gone to bed or whatever. But most of the time it's done during the day. Yeah. And they have it worked out so that can happen. And it's just a matter, again, what are people doing and why would somebody care exactly what hour of the day they're doing their work? I don't see what difference that makes, as long as it's getting done and they're meeting their deadlines, and as long as they have that communication on a regular basis. between the
Well,
team members and so on.
Well, I think it's gotta be a two-way street. It's gotta be a trust factor involved in there because okay, so say for example, well, I don't do this because I love to sleep. I spent 40 years with no sleep, and I love to sleep now, so I don't get up. The alarm doesn't go off till 7 in the morning. But I do have some friends of mine in my business that they actually get up at 4:30 in the morning and they work out, and then they actually work from maybe 7 to 8 or 7 to 9, or of course when you have your own business, you have to be structured. There's no two ways about it. And it's certainly possible. And I mean, like there's sometimes it's like, hey, I'm doing something during the day and I've got something else to finish. I'm my own boss. I have my own deadlines. And so, yeah, I'm working on something at 8 o'clock at night, but that's a choice that I make. And I don't see any reason why you cannot make that in the workday. Now, coming from a healthcare background and working for 20 years in fertility, they've had to make adaptations or adjustments, and I'm sure that there are plenty. I mean, now that they're open, there's no reason why a medical assistant can't run the rooms and hand out information, because a lot of times the nurses are basically on the phone talking with patients, and so why can't you do that remotely? And yes, then with something like that, you're going to have to be on the phone from say 9 to 5. It's very structured. But when you've got something that is like outside of that example, that's just getting a project done by X date, I don't see any reason why you can't do it whenever. If you want to do it on a weekend, do it on the weekend.
Exactly.
I don't know. Is the goal to get the project done, or is the goal to have you sit there at a desk for 8 hours?
Yeah, the goal is to get the project done. Let's look at what
Well, I believe that too, but on a corporate level, do they believe that?
Well, I don't know why they don't.
Yeah, and would you take a cut in pay?
No.
Me neither.
Not for doing my job. Why?
Because yes, it's a win for us that we don't have to worry about commuting. We don't have to worry about maybe dressing up 5 days a week. Yes, you still need to look respectful on a Zoom call, but and not work with your pajamas, but you don't have the stress of that. You don't have the automobile costs. You don't have the fuel costs. You don't have the time factor. So I look at that and having those wins there, that makes you a better employee. And that's going to make you more productive. But on the employer side, they can downsize to a smaller office space, so that cuts down on their costs. They don't have to worry about just hiring people in a particular geographical area. They can hire people from all over the United States. They can hire people from all over the world if they want to.
Yeah.
And it's going to cut down on office expenses for them. It's just going to be, there's just so many wins for them.
Yeah.
And a very small win for us. And to me, it's almost disrespectful of the human capital to say, I'm going to pay you less. Because there's such a big win for them and a smaller win for us. And oh, by the way, you're going to get paid less.
Well, it's like I've been saying, ladies, right from the very start of how we are building this organization out together. The next currency of humanity is not going to be rooted in money. It's going to be rooted in value. And once we show people that very value and show them that field of dreams and say, hey, when you build it, they will come. Not only will they come to them, we will also come with them too as well, because we're building it with them. And if organizations just take the time and realize that they are getting the very same dynamic wins as the very people that they are working with, not working for. There's a big difference. But once they get that and see that, then everything will become secondarily to everything else. The growth, the thriving, the community growth, because the very same community that you live in is the very same community that you work in. And I believe that's a big disconnect there onto itself, because organizations don't even see that as well. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, the other thing is this, Chris, and it speaks a little bit to what we talked about yesterday with regard to culture. If an organization has a really good culture and the people that work there are happy because of the culture, they feel valued, they feel encouraged, they feel supported, they feel acknowledged, then if somebody else comes to interview there and gets to talk to some other people and so on and so forth, then it's going to attract good people, because people want to work in a culture that is positive and that offers acknowledgement and support and encouragement and so on and so forth. And if you get the reputation of being a business that has that kind of culture, you're going to attract good people because they're going to want to work in that environment. But the opposite is true. If you have a poisonous culture, in a bad environment, why would anybody want to work with you? They don't want to be in that environment. So it's a matter of, what are you doing? And the only way your business can be successful is if you are supportive and encouraging and acknowledging to your people. And by telling them that now that they're working from home, you're going to cut their pay. I'm sorry. That is not, a good way to handle things.
Oh, no.
People are still doing their jobs and getting the projects completed on time and so on and so forth. I don't see what the complaint is. I don't know why their pay has to go down, because like Carla just said, if there aren't as many people in the office and they can have a smaller overhead, they're winning all the way around. So why would you cut their pay? You're already cut your overhead. And for the individual, they don't have to spend time commuting in an automobile or a train or, however it was for them to get to work. They don't need to spend the time doing that either. So, it's a win-win in a lot of different ways. But if you then penalize your people for doing this, I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense. And it's certainly
not going to feel wanted.
No, you're not going to keep your people if that's what you're going to do. They're going to walk away. They'll find another job where people are not cutting their pay because they're working from home. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
The thought that just came to mind, and it's too bad that Brian's not here, because Brian would have said, well, it's not the employer's place to make sure that you're happy at work.
True.
I can just hear Brian saying that. And it reminds me of another expression that I heard from somebody. His expression is, so what, now what? It's like, okay, these are the circumstances, they're going to cut your pay. Do you have the power? Do you have the courage? I had to think of what word I wanted to use. Do you have the courage to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go get another job?
Well, who did you talk to recently about what happened to them in their own kind of dynamic when they were told that they were getting X amount of money and they were there for so many years and there's like a 50-cent difference? Mm-hmm. What did you tell them?
You got to decide what you want to do. I mean, I was in a situation where I maxed out on the nursing salary for 2 years, and I stayed with it, and they weren't even giving any bonuses. And so, yes, I was a hard worker because that was my character, and that was the way I wanted to, I wanted my patients to be treated well. And I stayed because it was great for my schedule because I was in the middle of graduate school. But after that, I had to say, look, I've got to go somewhere else because we're not going to pay me more. There's no room for advancement in this company. And had they decided to cut my pay, I would have walked with my 2 feet and done something else.
Yeah, because I know you know who I'm talking about now.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, because like I said, when I heard that from him, that he was getting only X amount of dollars, and they were paying other people underneath him that's been there a whole lot time less, on like probably months and months and months less than he was. He's been at this organization for going on. Mm-hmm. This November will be, I think, 3 years, and he's getting paid X amount of money, but other people underneath him is getting paid 50 cents less than him, and he's been putting. I mean, come on. I mean, really?
Well, you know, my son, who's in IT, and his girlfriend, they both work together with the same company. When COVID first hit, and they were working remotely because of the virus and the company's policies and whatnot, you know, their ordering was down because the food, you know, it's a food service business, and so he does the IT and she does a lot of the marketing, and so the food industry was closed. So food industry wasn't buying stuff for restaurants and things like that. So they did take a shortcut in pay because it was that or get laid off, you know. And that I can understand, but just to say, just because you've relocated, or even if you're living in New York City and you decide, for example, and you decide that you want to work from home because you don't want to spend an hour commuting to the office, and you know you've got maybe kids at home, an older parent or something like that, or you just because you want to and you have that option, for them to even say, hey, you're going to take a cut in pay. Anybody working from home, no matter where it is going to take a cut in pay. I would walk with my 2 feet because I would feel totally disrespected.
Yep. And unappreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Not the way to treat people. Just really not. It's certainly not how you keep people. And as we've also discussed many times before, turnover is very expensive because you've got to search, and you've got to usually hire a recruiter or somebody who's going to be
right.
You've got to pay them a fee, and I'm sorry, like, are you nuts?
Yeah.
If you've got somebody who does their job and they do their job well, and you've never had a problem with them just because they're not coming into the physical office anymore, but they're still doing their job, why would you cut their pay?
I think that'd be great to get together, maybe once a week or twice a month or something like that, and make it a little bit more social. But we have the opportunity with Zoom to do Zoom meetings all day long. And if people are going to say, hey, I'm feeling kind of under the weather, but I am here and I'm working, it's going to still they're still going to be productive. They're still going to meet their deadline. They can still do Zoom meetings, and they're not contaminating everybody in the office.
Exactly.
Or taking sick time.
Or even to that extent, Carla, if someone is truly sick, that the only place that they've been is at home anyways. So you can't really say, well, you was at the office, you didn't finish the work at the office, but now you said you was going to take it home, and then now you're sick and now you're home. Now what's the deal? They're going to kind of second guess that, because if you're able to work at the office, they're going to say, well, why didn't you finish at the office? But see, that's the dynamics going to come down to play.
That's where the trust comes in.
Right.
You can be sitting there in the office and get absolutely nothing done because you feel so miserable. You got brain fog, and you just can't even figure out going from window to window on your computer, and it comes down to trust. How many people do you know have come into work, and I'm not talking COVID here, okay? Before COVID, the flu, the cold, whatever. How many people have showed up for work sicker than a dog because they didn't want to use their PTO? They wanted to save that PTO for vacation.
My wife has done it many times.
And it's a shame you have to do that, Yeah. Unfortunately, she's in a situation where she cannot do her job from home.
Right.
But a lot, now, thanks to COVID, I think that, to me, I'm sorry it happened. I'm not going to get into a conversation about COVID or anything, but one of the good things to come out of it, and I'm a very positive person, is the fact that I think a lot of industries and a lot of employers have realized the benefits of allowing people to work from home. And actually, it's made them trust people to work from home. And it's also made the employee, given them the opportunity to show them that they can effectively work from home. So why are we pulling everybody back to the office? Unless it's for a party. If somebody's going to get the job done wherever it is, let them do it.
Exactly. I don't know why they care. I've just never been able to figure that out. Yes, in some situations, to be able to work collaboratively, it is easier when you're physically in the same space. But today, with the technology we have, there's no reason why we can't do it online.
Oh, you could use a whiteboard. You know, they got a whiteboard on Zoom.
Well, you can share the screen, Carla.
Yeah.
You know, show what you're doing, and people can share documentation and so on and so forth. You can even send it to them so they can actually physically have a look at it themselves and compare it to whatever they're doing. I mean,
right.
You have the technology to do a lot of these things now that we didn't have before. And so remote work can be done as long as it's organized. And again, as long as we have the communication with our colleagues that's necessary if we are working on a project together. But you know, you can do it on Zoom or some of the other platforms that are out there. There's no reason why we can't have the discussion and share documentation and so on and so forth using Zoom. And and using email, because you can send the documents to people. Okay, well, here's something I've just finished. Have a look at it. See what you think. If you think there should be changes, so make the changes and send it back to me. Whatever. We can do these things. It's not that difficult. But it's just a matter of understanding what to do and how to do it. And we don't have to be in the same physical space to do that anymore. We just don't. Can have these conversations. We're having face-to-face conversations. We may not be in the same room, but we're having these face-to-face conversations.
Well, what ladies, what I see up on the horizon, and I've seen this way before even COVID even hit, is I knew in my heart of hearts that there was going to be a better path forward for humanity. There will be a better way to get things done, to really engage, inspire, uplift, get people to where they need to go in business today, to lead with their humanity and to lead by permission versus position. But what's going to actually see happening is, in the post-pandemic world that we're probably living in right now, I can even see a time that we can actually have both dynamics come into place. We can do things physically like we were doing once before, but then we have the option to say, hey, if we can be able to help your organization at your physical location, let us know. We will send someone right on over to take care of what needs to be done and can do that. And if you're still fearful or you just like the convenience of the virtual setting, it doesn't really matter. We can do whatever needs to be done from a virtual setup. No worries. The same work will get done. The same content will be there no matter what it's going to be done. I personally like to do things in person because you get more from the human connection, the human touch, the human interaction. And we need to get back to that.
I agree, Chris. I mean, webinars are nice, okay, but they're not nearly as effective as live training because it's much more difficult to make webinars interactive. The more interactive your learning experience is, excuse me, the more retentive it will be. And so it's very important to have some kind of interactive experiences during your learning process. And
something more than just put a Y in the chat if you agree with this, or press 1, or press 2, or press 3.
Yeah. It's harder to make it more personal and more interactive, and because I've just found that over the years, and I know that because of my education background, that interactive learning experiences are far more retentive. Because here's the thing, again, what we're basically going to be teaching these people is not rocket science, okay? So you put a reasonably intelligent group of people together and you divide them into groups and give them an assignment to do. They're going to come up with anything we would think of. And they'll remember it better because they came up with it rather than us spoon feeding everything. Now, if they miss something that I think is important, I will certainly add it in. But by and large, they will remember the things they came up with because they came up with them. It's much harder to remember things that somebody's talked at you about. So it's just a matter of getting them actively involved in their learning experience And that way they will retain it better. And also, if you can show them why it's a good idea to start applying the new things that we are sharing with them, and if they see it because of the exercises we're doing, they're going to be far more likely to start using it because they see the advantage from trying it out during the session.
Mm-hmm.
So, you get far better results and the company gets a far better ROI, So it's just a matter of, that's why live sessions, I really think, are more beneficial. There are some platforms where there are breakout rooms and stuff, but in the breakout rooms, they don't really get to talk. They got to use a chat box. So it's not quite the same as actually having a conversation with someone. And that's very difficult with using these platforms for webinars.
Well, I think that we've been able to, just come that far to be able to do webinars with breakout rooms and things like that has been a saving grace, but it's not the be all, the end all. You do need that human connection. You get, how many times, well, I don't know if this has happened to you, or maybe it has, Sandy, that you've met with somebody on Zoom and you have a great conversation, very delightful conversation. And then when you meet with them in person, it's like so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you really get to know their personality.
Well, and you get the nonverbal stuff that that we don't get as well online. And plus, when you have people in a room and you're looking at all of them at once, you can see that there are some people that are looking a little confused or whatever, and you can stop and say, okay, I can see that there's some people that are a little confused. So let me just back this up for a minute and explain this in another way, whatever. But when you've got people on Zoom or on some other platform, it's harder to discern those kinds of things because most of the screen is taken up with your PowerPoint. So you only see little tiny bits of their face or whatever, and it's harder to discern that they're not following along or they've missed the boat or
they might be like, they might have their picture up and they're doing this on their phone.
True.
They're playing on their phone.
Yeah, Carla. So
yeah,
it's harder
and
to
have no clue what you said.
Yeah. So it's, when I've got them in the room and I can see what they're doing, it's a very different situation, even if it's in an auditorium or whatever. And when I teach big like that, when I have like 100 or 200 people in an auditorium, like at a conference, I don't like to stay on the stage. And what I normally do is I come off the stage and I walk up and down the aisles and talk to people and watch people and answer questions from people and so on. And I often stand at the back when people are coming in. People like to sit at the back of the room, and I always tell them, I don't stay up there, so you can't.
You're on the move. Yeah.
You can't hide back here. I'm going to come and talk to you, so
Yeah.
you might as well move up. So it's just a matter.
That reminds me of the priest that we used to have at one of our Catholic churches that would go down the aisle and he'd quiz you, and you're like, oh God, I hope he's not going to come over here and quiz me.
Well, but it's just again, it's just more engaging. And,
yeah, it is.
It is. There are ways of doing things that I think are far more effective. And the live training is, in my experience, much more effective than using the technology. I know that today groups can't gather, and that's the reason why I don't have as much work as I normally do. And to be honest with you, I don't love giving webinars, but it's what we have to do today because we can't put people together in groups. It just is what it is. But I think I also told you that when I contacted some of my clients and said that I would do webinars for them, what they told me was exactly what we've just been talking about. Well, most of our employees are working from home and there are already enough distractions at home. So we don't want them doing training. We want them doing their work. Okay, fine, no problem.
Or they have back-to-back Zoom meetings with work.
Well, it's just interesting that that's the take that they would take on it in terms of, don't you want to keep encouraging your employees and helping them to improve their skills and so on and so forth and give them a little break from work? Yeah. I mean, it's just, how are you looking at it? I was surprised, especially from a couple of the companies that I've worked with a lot. I was very surprised at this answer, but I got the same answer from everyone I contacted.
Wow.
Okay, it's enough. I'm not going to do this anymore because obviously it's not going forward in any way, shape, or form. So whatever. I mean, I'm still getting inquiries, but a lot of it is, I think, because they're looking down the road as to when stuff is going to get back to normal, whatever that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And so they're searching what would be available when we can meet live again and so on. And that's why I'm still getting the inquiries through my website. So it'll be interesting, Chris, once we get this website up, what happens.
Yeah.
But even when you do that, I mean, companies have to realize that a webinar might cost them less in the meantime than a live presentation, because they don't have all the travel costs and whatnot to integrate into the fees.
Well, it depends. I mean, when I just do stuff in town, I don't usually charge travel. If I go to the island or go to the interior or whatever, yes, then of course I would charge the travel time and so on. But if I'm just doing stuff in the city, I don't usually charge travel time.
Right.
So, it just sort of depends how far it is and how long it takes and what time of day they want, in terms of, am I going to run into a lot of traffic, so I'm sitting in my car for an hour, whatever. It's just a matter of figuring out some of those things. And that's part of the discussion that you have when you talk to the client and see what their needs are and what they would like to do in terms of moving forward and how it'll all work and so on and so forth, because they need to have an idea of what it's going to cost them. So that all has to be factored in, depending on what their budget is. And in some cases, I will, work with them. It just depends. I mainly will cut my fees for not-for-profits, for people that don't have a lot of money.
So Scott Stevens actually joining us live on the LinkedIn live stream right now.
Oh.
Hopefully he'll be confident enough maybe in another live stream here soon, because I would love to get his thoughts on some things.
Yeah.
I just sent him a message to get connected with us.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this, Scott. Is the next currency of humanity going to be rooted in value, or is it going to still be rooted in money? And if it's not so, Scott, why? And if it's so, why? We would love to hear your thoughts on that, Scott, and we would love to have a great and engaging conversation with you about this and so much more. Because, again, I just know there's a new way, in which I think is the simplest way to get back to our humanity. Because if we get back to simple basics about who we are internally and externally, and the best way that we can lead others is to start leading ourselves. We got to start with number one, And I believe this topic kind of truly integrates with what we talked about yesterday.
It does.
And it again, everything's interconnected, ladies. It really is.
For sure. Absolutely, Chris. No question. All this stuff is interconnected. With all the aspects of what we would be offering people, it all builds on, they build on each other. It's all part of the whole picture in terms of how you need to run your business. And the people that are, it isn't just the leadership, because you're working with your colleagues, so you might not be dealing necessarily with the team lead all the time. You might be dealing with a couple of your colleagues. You still have to get along with them. You still have to be able to communicate effectively. You still have to deal with conflicts sometimes, and you need to know how to do that.
Right.
It's just a matter of and sometimes because of issues, we may have stress things that we're dealing with, or maybe we have to figure out from a time management perspective how to get this all done within the time frame and so on and so forth. So, there are lots of things that impact the results. And it all boils down to the same stuff that we're offering to people in terms of the different elements that we can put into programs to help them to be more effective and more successful in all that they do. So, again, we're not talking rocket science here. We're really not. We're just talking about human interactions, human behaviors, how people interact with one another, and how can they do better.
So let me ask you this, Carla and Sandy, and I'll start with you, Carla. Is the best investment the human investment?
Oh, I strongly believe in that.
Oh yeah, no question, Chris. Absolutely, no question.
We need to start nurturing one another and helping each other grow, as opposed to being divisive and going, you've got this opinion, I've got this opinion, and hey, we're going to go our separate ways. We gotta all get along together. you know.
Well, that's why I miss Brian from these sessions, because he's always got a different perspective, and I like hearing his perspective. I don't always agree with him, but I think it's really good that he has these different perspectives, and it brings a different look to the table in terms of, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Okay, well, that's interesting.
Well, it's like food for thought. Yeah.
I miss having him here, Chris. I like Brian.
Yeah, we miss Brian Sumner. Yes, we do.
Yeah, he needs to get his project done and come join us again. We miss him.
I like his, his interjections that are often, sort of out there somewhere. And it's fine. It's good. It makes you step back and go, oh, well, I never thought of it from that perspective. Interesting perspective. So it's good.
He just has a different way of looking at things.
He does. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have somebody on board who doesn't always think exactly the same way you do. Because it can take us down a different track, which might not be a bad track to get down.
Yeah. And see, that I've learned so much from Brian. He has really opened up my eyes into so many things that he's made me think in a way that really it creates that dynamic of, okay, I didn't think of that, but now I can bring that to the table and say, hey, I can either chime in for what a normal person would probably might end up doing, just to spout out something just to make themselves look good or pound their chest and that kind of thing. But he really makes you think and say, that's different. That's unique. Maybe there is that possibility out there that can not only be that possibility to turns into opportunity, but also turns into transformation and a transformative moment, not only for you, but also for the very people in that very said conversation or that experience. Mm-hmm. And to me, the human experience trumps any amount of money that we give people each and every single day. You can't put a price on people's experience, their value, what they are worth, what they do and how they do it, whether to be with a quote unquote disability or an ability or superpower. It doesn't really matter. What makes us uniquely different, but yet uniquely in your own regard, is our very uniqueness unto ourselves. We're individuals by nature. But when we are collectively together and working together for a better society, better workplace, better whatever that may be, it's just like in isogenics, better, you know?
Yeah, better.
Yeah, but better. So a word, no, it's okay. It's better, you know?
The expression that those that grow together, if we're all growing in the same direction and working together, it just makes life easier. And I know that throughout the past couple of years and meeting people on LinkedIn and wherever, I take away something from every person. And I don't mean that in a negative sense that I physically take it. I said kind of like internally, I learned something. I take away from that conversation different things from every person I've encountered.
Absolutely. And here's the thing.
You can't put a value on that, but it enriched my life because people come up with things that I go, I've never looked at it that way. Explain to me what you're talking about, or explain to me how you came to that. And it gives me another way of just thinking other than just what we all think about, this is the way I do things. Sometimes it's good to actually look at a different way of doing things.
Exactly. I mean, if we were all the same, this world would be very boring.
Yeah. And have a different point of view, and appreciate each other's point of view.
I think it's good to listen to different points of view sometimes because you sort of step back and you go, wow, I never thought of it from that perspective. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an opportunity to learn something. And it may not change your point of view, but it may broaden your point of view in terms of, okay, well,
it definitely does.
Hadn't considered it from that perspective. So, yeah, maybe I'll add that into what I, consider for this issue, whatever it may be. And that's why it's good to have Brian around.
Yes.
Well, I
guys,
mean,
sir,
it starts with
you are
with
missed right now, sir. Just to let you know.
Yeah, we missed him.
it starts with the golden rule, treating people the way that you would want to be treated. And if you don't do that and you treat people poorly, that reflects on how you think about yourself and what you think about yourself and your self-worth.
It doesn't help you though, Carla. Treat people poorly and disrespectfully, and in those. I mean, what are you going to gain from it? All that's going to happen is those people are going to shy away. They're not going to offer opinions or suggestions on anything because they get slapped down or they feel that they're not being listened to appropriately. I mean, what's the advantage to doing that?
Right.
I mean, if we're working with people, we need to respect them. We need to value their suggestions and their opinions and what they can bring to the table, because that's the reason why we have them on the team. And if we're not taking advantage of those different aspects, then we're missing opportunities. And that's a real shame. Like, why would you do that? So, I don't understand why people are so nasty to other people. Like, I've never been able to figure this out. I don't know what they figure they're going to gain from it. They're feeling powerful. Well, whoopee-doo. But, that doesn't gain you a relationship with this person. It pushes them away. And you may miss something that they would have to say that could be beneficial because they're not going to say it.
Well, a lot of people blame it on, well, that was just the way I was raised. My parents talked to me that way. And I look at it like, well, my parents were pretty stern, but that doesn't mean that I have to treat people that way. It doesn't mean that I have to that I had to raise my children that way.
Exactly. Sometimes we raise, we do that the way we were raised. And other times you'd step back and you go, I'm never doing that to my kids.
Right. And I think you can take that into the workplace. Maybe you've had bosses that have yelled at you before. So you think to you that's the way I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
And you don't have to be that way. It goes back to you catch more flies with honey, Well, and it just comes down to treat people with kindness, and they're going to treat you with kindness. Hopefully.
Because if you yell at people and finger point and blame, all that's going to happen is they're going to feel worse. They're going to make more mistakes. So winning here.
And then they're going to start hiding them.
Exactly. And that doesn't help us either, because usually that just makes a bigger mess. So it's better to sit down with them and be open and honest and say, so Chris, looks like we have a little problem here. What do you think happened?
What did I do now? What did I do?
Well, but you know what you did, because usually when people have screwed up something, they know they've screwed it up.
Oh yeah,
so, I did it. It's not my fault.
So if you do it in that way, so what do you think happened here? Okay, so how do you think we should fix this? And you can come up with suggestions. So do you think you can handle that yourself? Okay, but before you go away to fix this up, the next time you're faced with this kind of situation, what do you think you should do instead of what you did this time, so we don't end up with this problem? And we can talk about that and then say, okay, well, you go ahead and fix this up. And again, if you run into any snags or you feel you need some more help to fix this, you come back and I'll be happy to help you.
So I can reach back out to you, Sandy, and ask you any questions I may need to have?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Imagine that.
But if that's the way the team lead or even one of your colleagues deals with these situations, Chris, how's it going to make you feel? It's going to make you feel like you've got support and you've got help, and it doesn't matter. Human beings are very imperfect creatures. Mistakes are always going to be made. It's the way it is. But mistakes are opportunities to learn. And if we learn from them, we won't repeat the mistakes. So if you handle it in a positive and encouraging and supportive way, then the next time they make a mistake, they won't be afraid to come to you, because they know that in the past you have helped them deal with it. So it's just a matter, again, of how are you establishing your relationships with the people that you work with. So whether you're the team lead or you're just another colleague and you see somebody struggling and you know that you can help them, I mean, what difference does it make? Why can't we help each other? I mean, how hard is this? It just doesn't make any sense to me that you just leave people struggling and drowning there. I'm sorry. Doesn't make any sense. We all lose.
Well, when you make a mistake at work, you've already got that sick nausea feeling to begin with. The last thing you need to do is be yelled at.
Yeah. Right. And besides, if
you already feel bad.
When everybody else is hearing it, then they're walking around on eggshells wondering when they're going to get yelled at next. And that makes people uncomfortable and more likely to make mistakes as well. So it's not a good way to deal with people. It's just really not. So even if the person is upset about the mistake that was made, they don't need to yell at the person. We need to sit down and figure out how we can fix this. So what would you suggest that we do? And let's brainstorm together. And, I mean, in that way, they're not going to feel like they've been yelled at and finger pointed and blamed and whatever. We're going to help you solve this. That's what we're going to do. That's what a team does. They help each other. So, it just depends on how the person is running their team or how the team is working together. And again, if the team lead has led by an example that's a positive example, then you got a far better chance that everybody else on the team will try to behave in the same manner. I mean, we have to be accountable. We have to own what we do. It's how it works. You've got to take responsibility for the things you do. Even if you're a team lead, you're going to make a mistake too. And you got to say, I'm sorry, this was my mistake. I'm going to take care of it. It's had nothing to do with you guys. Don't worry about it. I'm going to fix it. And if they see that even you as the team lead can make a mistake, then they know, I'm human too. I'm not perfect either.
Right.
So, it's just a matter of showing your humanity. That's why sometimes when I tell stories in my sessions, I even tell stories that don't necessarily make me look that good. So it shows that I'm human too, and I can have a screw up. Yeah. But it's what you do with that screw up, how you move forward with it and how you fix it. And it's a matter of, especially when you're making presentations, you control the room when you are doing a presentation. Right. If you make your audience uncomfortable, you better find a way to fix it, because otherwise they're all sitting there tensed up and uncomfortable. So you've got to fix it. And it's a matter of paying attention to the fact that you have made your audience uncomfortable. Now fix it, because you want your audience engaged. You want them enjoying this presentation, their educational experience, whatever it may be. And so you want to keep things fun and light and interesting and engaging. And if you can do that, you're going to have much better outcomes, and people will want to come to your next presentation because it's fun. That's why I have games and I bring prizes, and I teach different kinds of elements, and then we do something right away, afterwards, so they can try it out. And then they have an opportunity to ask questions, because I walk around the room if they have any questions while they're doing their exercise, whatever it may be. And it's just a matter of, how do you engage your audience? And if you can engage them in positive ways, then you're going to be far more successful in terms of the outcome. And then Chris, the company's much happier because they get a much better ROI. If people actually start using the things that we're teaching them, then it's a huge win, and the company's going to be very happy.
So, Carla,
can go away.
What would be the call to action on today's great and engaging topic?
I think I have 2 calls to action. One of them is
2 for 1.
2 for 1. Take time to evaluate your worth, and don't sell yourself short. And decide what you will accept and not accept. You might be in a situation where you're working remotely, and next thing you know, you're in the situation like we just talked about, that you're being told you're going to come back into the office 3 days a week or whatever. Or if you decide to work remotely 100% of the time, you're going to take a 5, 6, 10% cut in pay. And think about that now as to whether you would accept that or not. And think about what your plan B is going to be if that happens. And, when you talk about plan Bs, nobody's job is secure. Any one of us, well, we all I work for myself, and so does Sandy, but if you're working for somebody and you're working for a company, that job is not yours. It belongs to them. And they can get rid of it in a heartbeat. They can decide to pay you whatever they want, even if it's less. You have to figure out what your plan B is. Secondly, a call to action would be work on treating everybody with kindness. We need to stop this divisiveness in this world. I don't bring politics or controversial subjects into any encounters I have with anybody unless they bring it up and they want to talk about it, or it's in a positive light, and you kind of get that sense whether somebody, how they stand with it. And if you want to run with it, but I'm not going to bring it into the workplace. I never brought any of my home problems to workplace. I'm not going to talk politics at the workplace. There's certain things you just don't do in the workplace, because we all really need to treat each other with kindness and stop this divisiveness in the workplace.
So Tay and Scott, we would love to have a great and engaging conversation with you. Please reach out to Sandy and to Carla and, of course, myself. We would love to have a great and engaging conversation with you about this and so much more. Those are two great calls to actions, Carla. I couldn't agree with you more. That's going to be great. And, yes, Brian, we miss you. Graham, we miss you. We got to get you on one of these teams, Graham. Graham.
Yeah.
It's been too long. We got to have you on here. So, again, ladies, thank you so much for doing all the great work that you're doing and helping me on this journey. And I can be not only in your life, but you can be in my life. And we're going to not only bring humanity together, but we're going to bring humanity in the business and beyond, and we're going to do it together. So another great and engaging conversation, ladies, as always. Is there going to be a 2-for-1 special though this weekend? Because is there a 19th hole, Carla, or no?
I don't know. I hadn't gotten to Sunday. I think it's going to rain on Saturday. So I don't know. I hadn't talked to my caddy yet.
Oh, I haven't talked to the caddy. Okay.
He just got home from the golf course, so I have to talk to him about that.
Okay. Just making sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you, ladies. I greatly appreciate you guys so much. And thank you, everyone, for watching Humanity Happy Hour with our great host, Carla Fedigan. And we'll see you on Tuesday for Share and Care with Sandy Chernoff.
Been another great day.
Yes, it has. Always. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
We have fun.